when the children go to the ICU, they see the other children that they would see the other children that have had surgery. Then after a while, the child that has had surgery would then come back to the ward, and they would see the bandages on their chest, and they would play together, and then that child would be well, and they would say goodbye, and another child would be taken to surgery. So every month we brought the child, and she loved him. Huh? She loved Dr. Aseso. Not once was she afraid of hospitals. In fact, my children haven't grown up afraid of hospitals. I think they've always had very pleasant doctors. And so they have loved hospitals, have loved doctors, have loved the environment. So every month we'd see Dr. Aseso, who was really nice, loved this child, gave her a lot of time in his surgery. They would laugh a lot, and we spent quite a bit of time with him. And then it was time for her to go into surgery just before her 3rd birthday. And we thought that we would like for her to have the surgery abroad. We hadn't heard of surgery being done in Kenya, heart surgery, because they said this is a big hole in the heart and we have to have open heart surgery. So we said, could we have it done abroad? And him and Dr. Otsula, who was the surgeon, Dr. Otsula had now come in. A very, able and also very pleasant person. I mean, it was an amazing team that we worked with. So Dr. Otsula and Dr. Aseso, I hardly remember doctors' names, but, this is that is so many years later, but I do remember those doctors. Because I continue to look up to them. They said, no, we are not going to send this child for surgery to the UK. It's going to be expensive, and the likelihood that this child is not going to survive the whole thing is so high because there is no prep time when you arrive there. It's such an expensive environment that you arrive and the surgery has to be done. And a lot of losses that we suffer is from these children not having the space to adjust to the environment. The shock is just so big that there's many losses that are suffered, not because they lack the capacity to run the surgery, but you just don't have the resources to pay for the acclimatization. So they convinced us that they should do it here in Kenya. So we said, okay, we shall. And we went down on our knees and we prayed and we covered that child. And my mother, who worked alongside these doctors, she assured us it's going to be okay. Later on, she said she was very scared. But at that time, she didn't tell us that she was scared. She said, it's a breeze. Let's do this. This is going to be perfectly all right. So this child was admitted in the pediatric surgery ward at Kenyatta Hospital, where there were lots of other children. And we were there for weeks. We asked, why are we here for so long? They said it's just so that this child relaxes in this environment and gets to see how things are done. Well, I and her father and all the caregivers who worked alongside the medical team, we all got acclimatized and we all got educated, because this child was in the hospital. There was always one of us in there in the daytime. At night, the children just went to sleep. But in the daytime, we rotated, and one or the other of us would be there with or a relative. Somebody would always be there in the daytime. And in the daytime, what happened is the children ate, they played. There would be a child who would go for surgery. They would all be told, this one is going for surgery tomorrow. They all gathered around that one who was going for surgery. I can't remember whether they were prayers or what, but they knew that this one was going for surgery. They were little children. And in the morning, these children, said bye to the one who was going for surgery, and they were told, you are going to see them in another room later on. So in the morning, that one would be woken up very early in the morning and taken to surgery. And then they would go to ICU, and all the children would be taken to the ICU to see the one that had come from the surgery. For me, it was a huge thing, just watching the children, because I never went into the surgery to see any of the other children, but the children went to surgery and watched the one who had gone.
Let's pause a bit to welcome Collins Orono from Total News. Total News is a news agency telling anything about children. And since we are talking about pediatric surgery, I saw it fit to share with the person who heads the news agency to come and hear something and also ask questions just for their knowledge.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here. I was just informed like some few minutes ago by my boss to join in and listen, and I'll be glad to listen to maybe some of the stories or some of the things that the discussion is all about, and possibly how we can also work together and maybe do one or two stories regarding the experiences that you're sharing in relation to children.
All right. So where was I? I was at when the children go to the ICU, they see the other children that they would see the other children that have had surgery. Mm-hmm. Then after a while, the child that has had surgery would then come back to the ward, and they would see the bandages on their chest, and they would play together. And then that child would be well, and they would say goodbye, and another child would be taken to surgery. There wasn't surgery every day. The surgery, it would take a while before the surgery. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, eventually, it was the day for my daughter, Kit Nyangaya Kiarie. Now she's Kiarie also, yeah? Mm. It was time for her to go for her surgery. And on that day, my husband and I arrived very early in the morning in the hospital. My mother also arrived. And we said, we got her from the ward, and the other children were asleep, and she was taken to the surgery. And it was a big one. A lot of medical students had come from hospitals all over Nairobi to the theater to observe. And my mother was also inside to observe the surgery. And they did the surgery. My mother wasn't able to stay the whole time. I think it's a lot easier when it's not your grandchild. Mm. She stayed there for a while, and then she said that thing, and messed up her head somehow. And at some stage, she got out, and she said she found us. in an almost state of mourning. And she said, let's drive around Nairobi. Let's go visit such and such a place. Let's take your mother. My mother-in-law was in Nairobi and needed to have some medical care. So let's go and do that. Yeah. And so we spent the day doing that. And eventually it was a surgery for like 8 hours. It was long. And eventually we came back and there was this child in ICU and she was alive. We've got the pictures. We took all the pictures. My mother and her sister were both nurses, and both of them were able to go in and see her in the ICU.